of Advent, which we in Unity take the opportunity to celebrate the birth of our awareness of our Christ presence, of our Christ nature. So we take this season to reflect on that and celebrate that. And today we will reflect on joy. Joy to the world, as the famous Christmas carol says. Joy to the world. The experience of joy, the beingness of joy, is one of life's most cherished states of being. And those of us on the spiritual path have a wonderful opportunity to come into the experience of joy, the joy of the season, and joy throughout the journey of life. And though we know it is Christmas season, we know it is certainly a season of joy, a season of celebration and festivity, whether it's connecting with family and friends and loved ones and reestablishing those ties, or taking the kids to see Santa and taking those pictures of your beloved child on Santa's lap, sharing what they want for Christmas. The iPads and the PlayStation 2s. And in my day, I would have been fine with Hot Wheels tracks. But that was a long time ago. The Christmas lights. There are several places in the city, and many people decorate their homes with Christmas lights. So when nighttime comes, the sky is lit with beautiful arrangements of lights. Or you can do the mistletoe thing, where you can get some mistletoe and hold it up above your head and look to your loved one to give you a smooch. Or a stranger, whatever works for you. All of these things are reflective of the joy of the season. And what all of these things have in common is that these are experiences during this time that tend to cause us to push to the side, at least temporarily, those worries and concerns that we may have, the hustle and bustle of life, the struggles, the conflicts, the challenges. We tend to put them to the side, at least for a brief time, and reflect upon love and appreciation. And the people in our lives, we tend to connect with them and just want to have that experience of connection, that experience of wanting to know how people are doing. In these moments of genuine appreciation, we tend to tap into what's good about people, what's wonderful about people, the things about people that are special, that make the people in our lives uniquely who they are. And it gives us an opportunity to be grateful for the people in our lives and how they feed into us and pour into us and make us the people who we are. So joy abounds. And where this joy comes from is genuine appreciation for who people are, from their essential nature. We may not consciously think that you're a spiritual being and I love you, or you are the Christ and I love you, but there's something wonderful about you. There's something beautiful about you. When I interact with you and when I connect with you, it causes me to have an elevated feeling and an elevated state of joy and appreciation. That's what the season brings. This is one of the most wonderful things about this season. Joy has an emotional tone and tenor to it, but it's something a little deeper than a common emotion. It's something more fundamental to our being, what joy is. And one of the better ways that I find to illustrate what joy is the story of the wise men in the Bible that's depicted in Matthew chapter 2. In the beginnings of this chapter, the wise men come from the east, and they come to Jerusalem because they have beheld this star. And this star gave them indication that this wonderful child, this King of the Jews, has been born. So they come to Jerusalem to find this child, to worship it. And so they connect with King Herod and ask the king, where is this child? And the king, concerned about this child, because this child represented a new awareness and consciousness that was something different from the awareness and the consciousness that was driving that kingdom. So Herod tells the wise men to go and find the child. And once you find this child, send back word to me so that I can come and worship it also. Well, that really wasn't Herod's intent, to worship the child. He wanted to kill it because that child represented something of a more pure kingdom other than the worldly kingdom that king was the head of. And so these wise men go, they behold this star coming from the east, and they follow this star because they know for that star is an indication of this child that has been born. And when we get to the 9th chapter of Matthew, it reads thusly: When they heard the king, they departed. And behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. When they saw that star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy because they knew what that star represented. Now, here in Unity, we practice a little thing called metaphysical Bible interpretation. Metaphysical Bible interpretation works in such a way to where when we read stories in the Bible, we accept those stories on its face. However, we seek to go deeper by looking at the people, the events, the situations, and the significant things in the story. We see those things as representations of the human experience and human consciousness. When we are able to identify those human experiences, that human consciousness, and the spiritual principles that are at work in the story, then it gives us a measuring stick of consciousness and spiritual principle by which to measure ourselves and where we are in consciousness and where we are on the spiritual journey. The Bible is the story of evolving consciousness, and when I read it as such, it is more relevant to my life. Not what does it mean in history, not what does it mean in theology, but what does it mean to me where I am in my journey, and what could I glean from it to where I can elevate myself and become more mature in my spiritual walk. So when we look at this particular scripture, the wise men represent that seeking sense and consciousness. It represents the seeker, looking for something or someone to bring us into a greater sense of peace, greater sense of awareness, and a greater sense of being. The east represents the within, the field of thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, that inner person, that inner awareness. The star represents the intuitive sense of something emerging, and not just anything emerging, something emerging that represents a greater and heightened understanding of who I am. So that emerging means I'm coming to understand myself more than a 6'3" tall black man with a bald head and very good looks. Don't mind me, I'm only serious. I'm something more than that. An awareness is emerging in me that is more pure, more authentic, more holy, more divine. And I'm beginning to get this sense that my life has a more divine or universal significance to it. And of course, that significance that I am sensing is my young, infantile awareness that the spark of God is within me, that the Christ is within me, that I am spiritually significant. So my seeking sense has brought me to this intuitive sense that I am more significant than who I've always understood myself to be. I am the Christ. I am divinely significant. God loves me. I am a wonderful child of God. And if I allow myself to become more mature in this belief, more mature in this awareness, to where I begin to live from this awareness and identify myself by this awareness, then I can come into more of an experience of my good, or more of an experience of what God holds for me in the way of blessings. This is the Christmas season. Yes, we're celebrating the birth of the child, but we're also celebrating the birth of our awareness of who we are. And we revisit this place over and over again in our spiritual journey, because sometimes we forget. Sometimes we forget our divine significance. When we get involved in the hustle and bustle of life and we experience challenges and obstacles and we get really involved and get really into trenches, sometimes we lose sight of who we are. Sometimes we lose sight of how significant we are. Joy is a state of being that comes about when I become adjusted and I am at peace with who I am, how I am, and how I show up in the world. For all of my journey of life and all of the successes and triumphs, and for all of the struggles and challenges and setbacks that I've enjoyed throughout my life, when I come to a state of peace and acceptance about all of that, I move into a joy, because I come to realize that through all of that, I am one with God. That is the essence of what joy is. When you know who you are, when you know why you are, and you know how you have been enriched and blessed from the divine, that moves you to a sense of joy. So it's more than an emotion. It's actually a state of being. It's actually a state of consciousness where you are centered and grounded in exactly who you are. That's a beautiful thing. So there's more to you than your good looks. There's more to you than your talents and abilities and how you're seen in the world and the status in society which you occupy. You are the presence of God in action. You are the Christ presence. And the invitation is extended to each one of us to recognize that and come into Christ consciousness, where we have an experience of life where we approach life being fully and intently aware of who we are. And so when we move in this season of Christmas, we tap into some of this when we begin to put to the side all of the outward forms and we really appreciate people for who they are. Even if we don't talk about it in the official language of you are the Christ or God is in you, just merely the act of appreciating someone for who they are taps into this same Christ sense, this same Christ presence, the kind of namaste consciousness. The divinity in me sees and honors the divinity in you. And when I am living in that place in me, and you are living in that place in you, we are one. The namaste consciousness. And this is something we tap into during Christmas time, but it doesn't have to be just Christmas time. We can have Christmas in December, or July, or March, whenever we choose. It's all a state of consciousness. I don't have to just be charitable during Christmas time. I can be charitable throughout the year. I don't just have to appreciate the good in myself and the good in people only in the season of Christmas. I can do that throughout the year. I can experience that throughout the year. But Christmas time is that benchmark in our year where we stop and we pause and we allow ourselves to be reminded of who we are. I tried to find this video, but I could not find it. However, I can explain this scenario. There was a young lady at one time, she was a photographer. And what she was doing was she set up shop on the street with her camera and had a stool there and just invited random people to sit while she took their picture. And what she told people as they came up and she extended this invitation is that I want to take your picture because I'm working on a project to celebrate humanity and all of the different shades and flavors and taste that humanity comes in. So when people agreed to this and they sat down, they had the face on them that represented the consciousness that they were in the moment. If they were really busy or whatever, their facial expression wore that. And it was clearly visible when they sat down and they got in front of that camera. If they were frustrated by something, if they had a bad day, when they sat down, they had that face on them that reflected the fact that they had a bad day. If they were going through experiences in their life of abuse or being oppressed or whatever it was that they were at the moment the invitation was extended, they had that face on. And so she took their picture. And after she took their picture, she asked each person, "Do you want to know really why I did this?" And they said, "Yes, why?" She looked at them and smiled and said to them, "Because you're beautiful." In the instant she said that, it was amazing how their faces lit up. It was amazing how bright their faces were and the smiles that came on their face. And some were even moved to tears that some strange random person would take that pause and recognize them for who they are. Now, she didn't use religious language or anything of that nature. She just tapped into the inherent beauty of each and every person, recognized it, honored it within herself, and then conveyed that in the simple message of, "You are beautiful." It was amazing how their faces lit up. And I was so touched by it that I was moved to tears. This is how beautiful we are. And too many of us, myself included, don't take time enough to pause to recognize how divinely blessed we are. The Christ is showing up in the world, yet it is showing the second coming of Christ is happening right now. But it's not going to happen from the east coming in the west in a laser light show of thunder and clouds. That second coming comes about each and every time you stop and you pause and you recognize how beautiful you really are. Each and every time you recognize how spiritually significant in God that you are, that second coming of Christ occurs. And if you would yet dare to live from this place and adopt the beliefs and the thoughts that will allow you to experience more of your good, the beliefs and the thoughts and the feelings that will allow you to experience more beauty, more love, more prosperity, more divinity in your lives, you will not only become blessed yourselves, but you will find that you also become a healing influence in the world. We've all seen it. Have you ever been around a person that just exudes joy? That's smiling and just happy and just bountiful. And when you come in their presence, you end up smiling yourself because you're connecting with that authentic, intimate joy. When we accept more of our good and we accept who we are, we can become the same seasoning influence in the world. Whoever you are, however you are. And it does not mean acting holy and acting righteous and holier than thou. You can express this joy, you can express who you are simply by being your beautiful self. You don't have to change to be something different. It's simply about being more of who you are, embracing more of who you are. And more of who each and every one of you are is beautiful and wonderful. And I am blessed because I get the wonderful opportunity to schmooze you and tell you that. You are beautiful. You are wonderful. And so are your loved ones. So be sure this Christmas season you stop and take a pause. Pause and reflect on the fact that you are the presence of the divine, and so is everyone else. Pause and reflect and take inventory of all the things in your life that you are grateful for, and all of the people in your life who have poured into you to make you who you are. Make the phone calls you need to make to connect with these people if they're not in town. Embrace the people who are in town. Embrace the people in your life. Whether you can embrace them physically or you can only embrace them in your memories, embrace those people. Celebrate. Let them know how much you appreciate them, and let them know exactly how they have poured into your life to make you the person who you are. Take advantage of this Christmas season and behold the divinity that is present everywhere, and be of great joy. Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas. God bless you.